A new magic law arrives for the High Elves in Total War Warhammer 3, the Law of Mists. Here's all the spells and what they can do for you. First up, Ladrielle's Shroud. This will restore your vigor 3% per second, last 25 seconds, making it overall 75% of your vigor that will be restored, and all for a minor 4 winds of magic, plus it makes you immune to contact effects, and if you overcast it for 9 winds of magic, you can add a heal onto that as well, which will restore 12% of a unit's health. So this spell is mainly about restoring your unit's fatigue. When they get down to exhausted or very tired, you can buff them up and bring them back to life a bit with this spell for only 4 winds of magic. Now, if you've seen my video about fatigue, I'll link it at the end, you'll understand how powerful this spell can really be. When you think about fatigue being a stat debuff for your unit, making them do less damage and take more damage, you can essentially see a spell like this as giving your unit a damage and defense boost, and a pretty substantial one at that. And thus, using it on your more expensive, powerful units is gonna make more sense. Like here, I'm gonna use it on the Blades of Hoeth. They've been fighting for a little while, so they've reached the tired fatigue state. But when we drop this spell, we can see they're gonna go back into winded, currently tired. Pretty quickly they'll move through them though. There you go, there's winded, and then not too long to wait and you'll get to active, and then you'll get to fresh after that, completely restoring your unit stats and having them operate at full power. So this can be really great for bringing your most powerful units back up to fresh, or at least out of exhausted. If they're exhausted, or like maxed out exhausted, they might get back to maybe winded or something, which is still going to be pretty handy. Plus, if you overcast it, you'll get that heal as well, which again is going to be most useful on your most powerful units. So a pretty great spell for the mid to late game when everything starts getting tired. It has a pretty quick cooldown of only 40 seconds as well, so you could just spam it on your powerful stuff, but because it's so cheap, you could use it on your mid-tier units as well. If they're in a good situation, if you've got some spearmen fighting cav or something, you can help them do a little bit more damage with this spell, and of course it's going to be good for lords and heroes too. Next up, Mathlann's Spike. This is a direct damage spell, strong versus single combatant, so look for single entities with this. Also adds on vigor 1% per second, goes on for 20 seconds, so you can add on 20% of an enemy's vigor, make them more tired. But most notably, the speed debuff is really what I think this spell is about. Minus 30%, if you overcast it, you can make that 45%. Does cost 8 winds of magic and 12 winds of magic, so not the cheapest spell in the world. So this could be very useful pre-battle when the enemy approaches. If there's some big scary single entities coming your way, like Scarbrand, dropping this to slow their speed by 45%, allowing you more time to blast them to crap with your missiles, is probably going to be the best use of this spell. The direct damage isn't huge, and the vigor penalty is obviously kind of a passive thing. Although I forgot to mention, when you use the upgraded version, you get an extra 10 seconds on there as well, so duration goes from 20 seconds to 30 seconds, so that's a little more direct damage, that's a little more vigor penalty. And as we can see here, it's allowed us to do about a third of Scarbrand's health before he's reached us, so pretty nice damage with 2 regular archers and 1 Sisters of Avalon. I guess you could also use this spell if you need to buy yourself a little bit of time, like if there's a big, heavy, dangerous cav coming down one of your flanks and you don't have anything there to stop it. Reducing their speed by about half will allow you to get, say, a cav unit over there to counter that, and I guess that's a use for it, but for 8 winds of magic, that's quite expensive just for that. The only other way I think you could use this spell is to stop something getting away, like if it's in a bad matchup with one of your units and then it tries to turn and run away, you can slow it down and keep up with it with your units and do more damage. But yeah, I think because this spell isn't super cheap, it's going to be best off reserved for slowing down those single entities that you can blast to Shiza, or any powerful unit really. And then we've got Walk Between Worlds. This, I think, essentially makes you an ethereal unit, giving you a 55% physical resistance, a speed boost, and strider, all for 6 winds of magic. Lasts 22 seconds, so this is mostly all about that physical resistance. That's a pretty huge physical resistance. The overcast version for an extra 3 winds of magic will double the duration, so 44 seconds. Largely, I think this spell is pretty simple. You're mostly using it for the physical resistance, so any unit that's about to go into a tough fight, drop it on them, like here, Homemasters versus Black Orcs. Black Orcs very dangerous. I've given one of these units here a 55% physical resistance, and one unit that isn't buffed, so we'll see how much it helps against the Black Orcs here. Fast forward, and you can see this unit has broken its Black Orcs already, while this one is just narrowly beating its Black Orcs. The unit that had the buff has half its health left, while this one is down to just under a quarter. So generally it's going to be best for protecting any of your more important units in those tougher fights, especially useful for lords and heroes, of course. Whenever they're fighting another lord or hero that's pretty tough, this can help save them a lot of damage. But do remember, enemies with magical attacks will ignore physical resistances, so this spell will do literally nothing if you fight a unit that has magical attacks. Now you might be wondering, well, what about the speed boost? What about the strider? Well, it's obviously not any use in this kind of situation when you're already in combat, and if you're running and not in combat, then you're not using a physical resistance unless you're being shot at. So if you want to utilize everything this spell offers, you'd have to be approaching some missile or artillery units that are shooting at you, because then you can reduce their damage by 55%, gain the speed boost to get after them faster, and if it happened to be on a hilly area or in trees, then the strider will come into play as well. So this spell will be handy if you're chasing down a bunch of missile units or you're getting shot up in some way. Like if you're trying to chase down 3 units of chameleon skinks and you're getting shot up by them at the same time, this can help protect you from all that damage, give you a speed boost to negate their poison and stuff like that. So there's some usage in that sort of arena, but for a simple, straightforward, easy way to use this spell that's still, I think, worth the magic cost, 55% physical resistance is just damn good and damn helpful in a melee fight, assuming, of course, you use it on a unit that's worthwhile protecting, like Phoenix Guard, rather than just regular spearmen. Now to our 4th spell in the book, Flensing Haar. This is a chain hex, so it will spread to up to 5 units, minus 30 armor, minus 36% missile block chance, so if they got a silver shield, it'll knock it down to a bronze shield. If they got a bronze shield, they'll have no shield. Lasts for 24 seconds, costs 8 winds of magic, can be overcast to double the duration. Now, on paper, this spell sounds good and does a good thing, reducing armor and block chance. That's very nice. However, it's only nice if it actually works, which it very often doesn't. You'll put it on a unit like so. I'm going to put it on this unit in the middle of a bunch of other units. It's going to give them minus 30 armor and that missile block chance, and the unit next to it doesn't have it, didn't spread to them, didn't spread to the unit to the other side either, and God knows it didn't spread to the farthest one, and it didn't even spread to the Lord that was right behind it. So yeah, this spell is about as useful as a chocolate knob sock. Use it at your own risk. It's probably not going to do a lot for you. I didn't realize saying that would have such a dual meaning. Anyway, when it works, this spell can be very useful for debuffing enemy units before they arrive to the battle. You can shoot them up. If they've got a shield, you can ignore that and do good damage. I used it a bit late in the first example, but something like this, when the enemy is far away, you can see it hasn't spread again, but if you focus fire the unit that's debuffed, I've taken this silver shield unit down to a bronze shield, and we've done quite a lot of damage to them before they've even arrived to the battle. Could also be very useful fighting enemy ranged units that have shields, like Dark Shards. They have a silver shield and 30 armor, so if you take it down to a bronze shield and give them 0 armor, they go down pretty quick. Assuming that the spell spreads, which of course it probably won't. I have tested it a bunch of times in a bunch of different ways. Like here, putting units that are literally inside each other. The spread has a 40-meter range, which these units are definitely inside of, but yet it still doesn't spread. It only hits the one unit that you cast it on. So use this spell at your own risk. If it works and it spreads out, it's going to be worth the magical money, but while I have seen it spread before, it usually doesn't. And I'd like to say that because I'm on a pre-release build, this is just a pre-release problem and it'll be fixed, but this has been a problem with these spreading spells for a while, so use Flensing at your own risk. Next up, the Writhing Mist, the weirdest spell you've ever come across. This is kinda like 3 spells in one. It's very strange, but has some useful potential. So you've got self-ally, missile block chance plus 30 and 360 block. Those 2 things together are very useful. However, you cannot use those if you are using the other 2 parts of that section, stalk and snipe. If you have stalk, then you're invisible and enemies obviously can't shoot at you, so the block chance is useless. It also can debuff the enemy if you use it on them, reducing their leadership and melee defense by 24, which is pretty nice. It is an area spell, so it will get multiple units. But again, if you reduce enemy melee defense by 24, it means you need to be in melee with them, which means stalk and snipe isn't useful, and probably not really getting shot too much either, so missile block chance isn't useful. So yeah, as I say, it's kind of a weird one. It's kind of 3 spells in one. You can overcast it to extend the duration for 14 winds of magic, which is not cheap. I guess something like this situation you can make use of a bit more. Here I've buffed 2 units, so they're going to be debuffing the enemy units and taking away their melee defense, while this unit on the end isn't actually in melee, so it's not benefiting from that, but it is being shot and protected by a gold shield because it's upgraded the block chance, so that's 85% of missiles that are going to be blocked, and that is handy. So for 10 winds of magic, if you can debuff 3 enemies by 24 melee defense, that could probably do some good work for you. Or if you're moving up on the enemies and they're blasting your units and you can protect them with that missile block chance and extra shieldness, that's going to be quite useful. Using the stalk, you could maybe put it on a couple of units of cav to have them sneak around the flank and surprise the enemy. To make the most of it, you'd probably have to use the overcast version though, which is pretty expensive at 14 winds of magic, so do you want to spend that just to have a couple of units surprise the enemy, which against the AI they could probably see anyway, so yeah, bit of a weird one. I don't even know how you'd use the snipe. Using snipe for just 20 seconds or 48 seconds, yeah, is it that useful? I don't really think it is. I'd probably use this just for the melee defense debuff, if nothing else. Maybe the missile block chance for my lord or hero or something that's going behind enemy lines and getting shot up by the missiles, but yeah, bit of a weird spell, 3 in 1, fuck off. Lastly, a nice simple spell that Todd Howard would be proud of because it just works. A simple summon of Oceanids, costs 12 wins of magic, so not cheap but not too expensive either. And Oceanids, while they are more of a defensive unit, you could use them in the usual way you might use summons to flank a front line to get after missile units. And this is something the High Elves didn't really have a lot of before. I don't think they had too many summons, maybe Great Eagles somehow, or maybe that's the Wood Elves I'm thinking of, but either way, a nice addition for the High Elf roster to have the summon ability. Also, because Oceanids are just kind of a more defensive monstrous infantry, they could just be good to put behind your front line and then mix them in with your frontline infantry just to help it hold. I think they missed a trick with this spell though, not giving it an overcast version where you can summon a sea elemental instead for obviously much more magic. But there we go, all the spells in the new Lore of Mists. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know if you think I've missed anything about how a spell could be used maybe. Otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Do consider supporting the channel through YouTube memberships or Patreon if you wish. Otherwise, I will see you in the future.